Hey everyone, welcome to this week's episode. Today we'll be talking about the topic of affirmative actions in our modern day world.
So now let's talk about affirmative action in college admissions. So what that is it basically refers to policies and practices that are designed to increase the representation of historically marginalized groups, such as racial and ethnic minorities in higher education institutions. And these policies aim to address historical and systemic inequalities by giving underrepresented groups a fairer chance at gaining access to educational opportunities. And this can include considering an applicant's racial or ethnic background as a factor in the admissions process. And admissions officers may take into account an applicant's race or ethnicity as a part of a holistic review process alongside other factors like academic achievements, extracurricular activities, and personal qualities. Although the original intent behind affirmative action is to address historical disadvantages and promote social equality, critics of affirmative action argue that it can lead to reverse discrimination, where applicants from historically privileged backgrounds may face disadvantages. This may also argue that affirmative action could compromise merit-based admissions. So now we're going to be talking about how this affects each race. So for me, I'm going to be going into white or Caucasian. So we all know that white or Caucasian people have a historically privileged background. And through affirmative action, it could even possibly replace their spots for minorities rather than benefiting them. Some white applicants might perceive affirmative action as increasing competition for limited spots in college and universities. They might believe that their chances of admission are reduced because of a certain number of spots that are reserved for underrepresented minority applicants. And critics of affirmative action argue that it goes against the principle of meritocracy, where individuals are evaluated solely based on their abilities and achievements. They might contend that qualified white applicants should be unfairly disadvantaged in the admissions process due to their race. On the other hand, though, for indigenous people, indigenous communities have historically faced significant disadvantages, including systemic discrimination, forced assimilation, and limited access to education. Affirmative action basically recognizes these historical inequities and aims to address them by providing opportunities that might not have been available otherwise. And college campuses essentially actively seek to enroll Indigenous students through affirmative action, and it can contribute to the preservation of Indigenous cultures and languages. And increased representation can lead to the establishment of cultural organizations, events, and initiatives that celebrate and honor Indigenous heritage. So essentially, affirmative action in college admissions can have a positive effect on Indigenous people by increasing representation, acknowledging historical disadvantages, and basically promoting cultural preservation.
Now let's talk about how Asians and Hispanics are affected by affirmative action in college admissions. Asians, while may not be universally considered disadvantaged, their experiences within the context of college admissions have sparked many debates and challenges. In some cases, Asians have faced concerns regarding potential overrepresentation due to high academic achievements, which has led to debates over fairness in admissions processes. Some argue that strict numerical quotas or caps on college admissions could disproportionately affect Asian applicants, creating a disadvantage for them. However, it's important to note that the Asian community is not a monolithic group. It encompasses a wide range of ethnicities, socioeconomic backgrounds, and experiences. While some Asians may benefit from socioeconomic advantages, others may face language barriers, discrimination, or economic challenges that could impact their access to higher education. Now for the Hispanics. Hispanics are often regarded as an ethnic minority group in the United States and can be considered beneficiaries of affirmative action policies. Affirmative action aims to address historical inequalities and promote diversity by offering opportunities to those who may have been historically marginalized or disadvantaged. Many Hispanics have faced systemic barriers to education and economic advancement due to factors such as language barriers, socioeconomic challenges, and discrimination. As beneficiaries of affirmative action, Hispanics are provided a pathway to higher education and professional opportunities that might otherwise have been out of reach. Overall, I think that affirmative action in colleges has so many aspects to it that it's hard to say whether or not it's a good or bad.
As for my personal thoughts on affirmative action in college admissions, I believe even though it has a good cause, it's aimed to basically acknowledge these historically unprivileged ethnic groups and racial groups. I think it's doing quite the opposite by reversing this. So minorities basically kind of have an advantage in this situation rather than, say, white people. So anyone that's not POC. And as Asian populations are growing in the United States, it's also pretty unfair for Asian people since there's a lot of them and the chances of them getting a spot is gonna be like increasingly lower or decreasing. As an Asian myself, I believe that this whole system is a little bit unfair. Like I see where people are coming from with this system, but it just disregards meritocracy as a whole basically, and I feel like college admissions should be solely based off of your academic achievements and extracurriculars, stuff like that. And with this whole system, I think that like many super qualified applicants are rejected because they're not part of a historically unprivileged ethnic group. And I think that's extremely unfair.
However, the idea of affirmative action goes beyond just college admissions. It can also be applicable to our everyday lives. We will talk specifically about how it applies to work life and the entertainment industry. In the entertainment industry, things have changed significantly in the last few years and are still changing. One thing is the rising amount of popularity amongst celebrities from minority groups. In the past, there were very few famous actors and musicians from minority groups compared to the amount of famous white actors and musicians. But now society has changed along with the industry as well. There has been more inclusivity in regards to race. However, the issue of reverse discrimination increases as well. An example would be Taylor Swift. For those unfamiliar with her, she is a white American singer and songwriter. Due to her extreme popularity, she has received hate for many different reasons, but one of them is just because she's white. People talk about how she takes attention away from other artists of minority groups because of her marketing, and they hate her for that. It is undeniable that she does take attention away from other artists due to her marketing, but I think that if roles were reversed, no one would talk about it, let alone get mad at an artist of a minority group for marketing their own songs. But Taylor Swift received the reverse discrimination just because she's white. That is just one example, and this type of thing happens to a lot of other artists and actors as well. And we, as consumers and fans, have all probably seen this phenomenon within fan bases.
Now let's look at racism and nepotism in jobs and businesses. So, racism is basically the discrimination, prejudice, or bias directly towards individuals or groups based on their race or ethnicity. In the context of jobs and businesses, racism can like manifest in various ways. So, racial bias during the hiring process can lead to qualified candidates being overlooked or excluded from job opportunities due to their race, and racism can also affect the chances of minority employees receiving promotions, raises, or access to leadership roles within a company. And this can work for vice versa too, like white people um, receiving promotions rather than minorities, and pay inequality. So, racial disparities in pay and compensation can result from discriminatory practices leading to unequal pay for employees of different racial backgrounds. And racism can also contribute to a hostile or unwelcoming work environment, negatively impacting employee morale, mental health, and overall productivity. And nepotism is basically the practice of favoring relatives or close friends, often in hiring, promotion, or business dealings, regardless of their qualifications or merits. And this can have several negative consequences. So, hiring or promoting individuals solely based on familial or personal relationships can lead to unqualified individuals holding important positions. And nepotism can also undermine the principle of meritocracy, where individuals are rewarded based on their skills, experience, and performance. Nepotism can also limit diversity within a workplace or business, leading to a lack of fresh perspectives and ideas. And non favored employees might feel resentful and demotivated if they perceive that promotions and opportunities are not based on fair criteria.
The topic of affirmative action in college admissions and its extension into our work life and the entertainment industry is both complex and multifaceted. Throughout this podcast, we've explored the diverse perspectives surrounding affirmative action, acknowledging its potential to both uplift and challenge various groups. Affirmative action's intention to rectify historical inequalities and promote diversity underscores its significance in our efforts towards a more inclusive society. It's clear that while affirmative action can provide opportunities and representation for historically marginalized individuals, it also raises valid concerns about fairness, reverse discrimination, and the potential for unintended consequences. As we continue these discussions, it's crucial to foster open dialogues that embrace a range of viewpoints, ensuring that policies are crafted with sensitivity and an understanding of the broader social context. Ultimately, our collective goal should be to create environments that embrace diversity, uphold principles of fairness, and promote equal opportunities for all as we strive for a more equitable future.